Hello and welcome to another part of our Moving to Canada series. This is part 2 of how we got our PR. In the previous part, we discussed how our Canadian Express Entry PR application was denied and how we lost our passports in a foreign country. If you haven't already checked that out, there's a link in the card above or the description below.
In the part 1, we left the story where we almost decided that let's forget our Canadian PR and live our life in Atlanta. However, we both sat down, had a detailed discussion, and then decided we have already put in a lot of hard work into it, so let's fight it till the end and see if we can actually get our PR or not.
So the plan was we'll book a flight to Canada and then book a flight to India, stay in India until August where we would give our US visa interview, get our visa and then fly back to the US. The only problem there was getting this approved by our office because it was an extended period of stay outside of the United States. But even though it was a difficult negotiation, we were able to come to an agreement and we booked our flight to Canada.
So, after booking the flight to Canada, our next step was to book a flight to India. However, during our negotiation with our office, there was only one condition that was put on us, and that was we would fly to India on a weekend so that if required, if the office needs us during the weekdays, we are available and we are in network range so that they can contact us. Now, this was already a last minute plan, and all the weekend flights were costing more than $3,000 US dollars. So this was costing us a really lot of money. However, luckily we found one flight that was somewhat in our budget considering it was last minute, but this was through Ethiopian Airlines and the layover in between was 11 hours.
So now we began researching about Ethiopia, whether we need a visa to visit Ethiopia or transit it, whether we can go out and visit other places in Ethiopia. We also dug through the fine print of the airlines to figure out if they were offering any sort of hotel or accommodation if there was a layover greater than 8 hours. Turns out, yes, they were. But it did not work out in our favor. More on that later.
So the next step after booking our flight to India was to clean up our entire house. We cleaned up the house, packed our bags and emptied the fridge because our house was going to be unattended for an extended period of time. So we wanted it to be perfect when we come back to our house.
Our flight to Canada was leaving from the Atlanta airport at 6 in the morning, which means we had to reach the airport around 4:30ish. So getting up was around 2:30. I'd set an alarm for 2:30 and I woke up to a dreaded message from the airline saying, due to heavy rainfall at New York, where the flight was supposed to originate, your flight has now been cancelled. And there was no further action item. So we called up the airlines and they basically gave us just two options. One, you can rebook another flight that you can find, or we can refund you the money on a gift card.
So at this time we were in a really very panic mode. And there were a couple of reasons for this. First of all, we had to land in Canada before 31st of May, that is our COPR expiry date. And it was already 29th May. Second of all, we had already booked a flight from Canada to India. These were non-refundable flights and they costed us a lot. So we were really very panicked at that time.
So we took a little bit of a break, sipped a glass of water, relaxed because we had a lot of planning to do now. We checked frantically for any other available flights and we found one that was a direct flight from Atlanta to Canada. So we called up the airline, but they gave us the bad news that that flight was completely booked and they couldn't even place us on a standby list. So now we were back into panic mode. But this time we called up our credit card concierge since they do help with all of the coordination here as well. And they were able to get us two options. One was a one-stop layover flight from Atlanta to New York and New York to Canada. But the only caveat was that it was reaching at 9:30 p.m.
So at this point, we rejected this option because we wanted to reach Canada before 5 p.m., that is before the working hours, so that we can take care of our SIN and other formalities at the airport itself. So we asked for the second option, which was?
The second option was one-stop layover, but it was going from Atlanta to Dallas and then from Dallas to Canada. And that was reaching at 2:30 p.m.
So we preferred this option even though it was going south and then going north. However, the reason we rejected the first option was we were having layover in New York, and the first flight that we booked was also coming from New York, so we didn't want to take that risk. And the second reason was this was landing in Canada before 5 p.m. So we could have taken care of all the other formalities that we wanted at the airport itself. So now we were relaxed that, okay, our flights are booked, now nothing can go wrong. But
so we made our way to the Atlanta airport, got on the flight to Dallas, and the flight took off just fine. And landed in Dallas right on time as well. So I would say our first leg was pretty successful. However, the fun was just about to begin.
so as soon as we landed in Dallas, there was an announcement that was made on the airport PA system. Our flight was the last flight that landed in Dallas at that time. So there was a hurricane and Dallas was in the path of the hurricane. So the airport was closed down for 3 hours until it was clear to take off and land. So until then, there was no flight that was taking off and there was no flight that was landing. So we were stuck at the Dallas airport.
Now that we had about 3 to 4 hours to kill, we were trying to figure out what to do with that time. The first thought was, let's try and find a lounge since we had lounge access. But because no flights were leaving, there were a ton of people and lounges were all overcrowded. So we tried walking around trying to find benches to sit on, but everything was super jam-packed. So naturally, the last place to sit was just on the floor, and we were just not alone. There are a lot of people doing the same thing, and we just joined them.
So after waiting for 3 hours, there was another announcement that was made. And this was a happy announcement. The announcement said that it is now safe for the airport to open up and the flight started landing. So the flight that was supposed to take us from Dallas to Canada landed. However, the flight crew exceeded the amount of time that they are allowed to fly. So they couldn't take us to Canada. Now the flight was here, but the crew was not here.
So the airline had to find a replacement crew for the same flight, and they ended up taking roughly 8 hours to actually find the next crew.
And we saw when the airlines landed with the crew that was going to take us from Dallas to Canada, the crew walked in from one gate to the other gate into the flight, and everybody that was waiting in the airport clapped for them because they were really exhausted for sitting around 8 hours at the airport.
It was a moment of celebration for sure.
Yes.
We were supposed to land in Toronto at 2:30 p.m. but ended up landing at around 1:30 a.m. the next day. A travel that was supposed to take us not more than 3 hours took us more than 24 hours. But in a way, we were happy to have landed in Canada before our COPR expired, so that entire journey didn't go to waste.
And we were so happy that we thought earlier and we had a day buffer before we landed in Toronto. Else we would have landed with an expired COPR and we didn't want to cross that bridge. So everything went well. We got our landing formalities done. We were happy that now nothing could go wrong. But wait, whenever we think that nothing can go wrong, something definitely goes wrong.
So now that we were in Canada, the next journey was moving from Canada to India via Ethiopia. Around the same time frame, our parents were also looking for a vacation to Africa. And on a casual call with them, they mentioned that if you visit some countries in Africa and you come back to India, you need to make sure that you have taken the yellow fever vaccine, or else you can get quarantined for 7 days once you land. Now that basically sounded alarm bells in both of us, and we started looking if Ethiopia was one of those countries.
And unfortunately for us, Ethiopia was in the list of those countries. So we started researching how we can get the vaccine in Canada, or if we can even get it in Canada. We figured that the incubation period for this vaccine is 7 days, and we were only in Canada for 2 days. So taking a vaccine was not an option for us. And we did not want to risk a chance of getting into Ethiopia and then trying to get into India, because in this journey anything and everything that could go wrong went wrong with us, so we didn't want to take that risk.
Yeah, and one important thing was once we landed in Ethiopia, as long as we were inside of the airport, we were exempt from having the requirement of having taken a vaccine. Because it doesn't show up on your passport as if you had visited Ethiopia, since it's just transit. If we were to take that hotel that they were giving us, because our layovers were more than 8 hours, or we went outside the airport to visit some other places, we would have to have taken a vaccine, because that would show up on the passport as we had visited the country of Ethiopia.
And then Indian immigration, once they checked the stamp, they could have asked us if we have the vaccine or not. In case if we did not have the vaccine, they could have quarantined us for 7 days. So we did not want to take that risk.
And we did not want to lose that time.
Yes. So the next step was to figure out what we can do at the airport for 11 hours. I researched a lot and figured that there are only 2 lounges at the airport. One was a Star Alliance lounge and the other was Ethiopian Airlines Business Lounge. Both of these lounges do not give you access at all. You cannot even buy tickets to get into these lounges. So at this time we were disheartened. But
yep. The only way to get into one of those lounges was if you were a business class ticket holder on the second leg, which is Ethiopia to India. The way to get the business class tickets was a little different. You had to actually bid for that. So we decided, why not? Let's just try putting an arbitrary small amount and see if it gets approved. And we did not hear about it until we had taken the flight from Canada to Ethiopia. And we had almost forgotten about it. But then when we landed in Ethiopia, we got the good news that our flight was upgraded because it accepted our bid, which means we could now get into that business lounge.
So lucky for us, we were in the business class lounge, which was really good. It was not bad at all. They had food and we relaxed, and that was the much needed break that we had to take because of such a hectic process from the last month, that we were like calm and relaxed for those 12 hours. Please do not think that we are complaining. We are so lucky that we were able to land in Canada and we had an awesome story to tell everybody. Right now, looking back at this, we realize how lucky we were that we were able to finish our landing in Canada, and we also got to learn a lot about each other and how to be calm in a certain situation and then plan ahead and break down a problem into small chunks and then solve it. So we are so lucky that we had this experience.
Yeah, and this also allowed us to now narrate this incident to everyone and let them know, and let you guys know what not to do when you're planning such a hectic journey.
So the next video is going to be our experience in business class. This was our first ever business class experience, and we have recorded everything, and we'll take you with us on our journey from Ethiopia to India.
And like always, if you like this video, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't subscribed already, and check out our other videos from our playlist. See you guys soon.
Bye.